All right, I'll be talking about Jangle, which is a project to try to push a RESTful web framework for our various library systems. This is an open source project that the Talis is trying to get the ball rolling on, and we don't want it to be a Talis project. We just want to be, along for the ride. But the goal is to implement a very thin RESTful interface between library services and the outside world, like very thin. And I'll show you a diagram in a second. But and we don't view this as a competitor for the DLF ILS API initiative. It's a way to enable the DLF API initiative, because if the vendors are probably going to drag their feet and take a very long time to do anything. So this way we can kind of shoehorn an interface layer in the middle, so we can actually get these sort of interfaces going until we get real vendor support for the sort of things we're trying to do. It'd be the same API for all systems. You make a RESTful request for an actor, say, and you get back the same response. All systems. And that could be anything in the background. It could be institutional repository. It could be an ETD thing. It could be a interlibrary loan app, Iliad. So yeah, it's not, I guess, not a simple diagram. But what you're looking at here is on the left, you've got your traditional library services. These are our silos. And they could be anything. At the top we have the ILSs. At the bottom we have Iliad. It's just an example. In the middle is a thin strip. That's what we're calling Jangle. That's where you make your requests. These two things talk to each other via JSON. So it's a standardized request from, the connectors live in between Jangle and the ILS. The community would have to build these connectors. Obviously, we at Talis don't know how a Voyager database works, or how a III database works, or how Iliad works. But the people that are already making these hacks already know how these things work. So it, conform to a sort of a standard JSON response, then Jangle can aggregate these things and make a standard response out. And then we can, through HTTP requests to that, get, post, put, delete, we can enable things like the DLF ILS API on top of that. It can do all the things that we need it to do. And then we can have that standardized response on top of a more ad hoc standardized response. We can add things like an OII PMH provider. And however it needs to happen on this end, maybe you have to get every record individually. Maybe it's like, however it takes to get it to that point. And then that way that can feed your open source next generation catalog, or whatever you want it to do at that point. INSIP the same way. That way, since nobody has a working implementation of INSIP on their catalog, we only have to do one this way, right? And so as long as you're Jangle compliant, then you're all of a sudden INSIP compliant, assuming we have an INSIP adapter hanging on the front. Or whatever your local app is, or whatever your external local app is. Some other department across campus wants to create something that works against your library data. They don't have to wade through our stupid standards and through our, the things that they've never heard of and they don't care about. They just want to request something and get some XML, let's say, I don't know, JSON maybe, whatever, back, something that makes sense. So, just kind of take away all those objects. We have connectors, we have Jangle in the middle, and then we have services on the front. That's all we want to do. We don't have any real stake in where we want to see this go. We need this. A lot of other vendors need this. But more than the vendors need this, we all need this. We're trying to get this data out of here. We're trying to liberate this data. We're all trying to do this. We're all going through our own ad hoc ways of doing this. So why don't we get together and try to do it right? We've started writing some code. It doesn't necessarily have to be the code that works. We don't care about that so much. We care mostly about the API, about the model. We think that's a pretty good way to go about, as long as we can all agree on it. We've got a lot of things that we have. We had the breakout meeting earlier about people, how they're getting data out of their ILSs any way possible. SQL access, screen scraping, both. Let's do it. And it doesn't, with the JSON requirement, it doesn't matter what language the connectors are in. As long as they can output JSON, we're fine, right? So whatever language you're comfortable in, Perl, PHP, Ruby, Python, it doesn't matter on that end. So like I said, we have some working code. It's Ruby, using rack as the service layer. It runs. We have it in Subversion. You can check it out. You can make it work. And here's the site to go to for it. We have a Google Code site and a Google Groups site. There's some stuff there. right now it's really all just Talis people. There's some Equinox people there too. We've been talking to them about it. But please go and contribute. Thank you.